Field days this way, alrighty. Peace and joy, guys. Hey, sorry I did not post last week. We've been busy and we got a special day for you today. We are having a field day on our farm. Oh, well, let's go. Come on, let's go. We are having a field day on our farm today. There's going to be all kinds of people here. The NRCS, the Conservation District, MSU Extension. There's going to be doctors speaking, and yours truly will be speaking. So come along today. I'm going to film as much as I can. I'll probably be a little busy, but definitely going to try to get some footage of everything going on. Come along. Thanks, guys. One down there that doesn't want to come for some reason. Well, it's here, and I hope that hope I don't screw up my little speech or whatever. People are showing up.
Every ditch they're watching. Come close enough. Actually, on Portage, like we had one coming after almost.
He's first up.
Peace and joy, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Drumhiller Farms. This farm consists of 80 owned acres and 80 leased acres of land, and roughly about 110 to 120 acres of pasture land. And my wife Allison and I raise grass-fed, grass-finished beef on this land, and recently have added pastured chicken to the farm. At the end of this summer, we've raised about 1,000 chickens our first year, so it's been pretty interesting doing that. And folks, we live in uncertain times, I believe, here in the farming industry right now. There's a graph showing the inputs versus gross revenue of farming over the past several years. This study's actually out of Canada, but I would have to imagine it's going to be pretty close to the same in the States. And you can see things keep going up. Fuel costs keep going up, equipment costs keep going up, fertilizer costs keep going up, and you have to ask yourself, what can we control and what can we do about it? You know, we really can't control any of those things, and we really can't even control the weather or anything on our farms, but the one thing that we can control is our management. And that's really what I want to speak to you about today, is management certainties in uncertain times. And I believe it was that first summer we fed hay in August with that small herd of cattle. And I'll tell you, being in the grass-fed business, feeding hay in August is not profitable whatsoever. And we really didn't start to understand what it took or what it required to manage cattle until that following year, when I felt like the Lord started telling me we needed to move cattle every day. And what we really didn't know, but what we were learning, was management. And the most important thing that we really learned that first summer was we needed more cattle. You know, started to kind of question my faith and wonder what the Lord was telling me to do, getting more cattle, because I knew we needed some more on our land. And I thought, really, is this what you're calling me into? And why? You know, why is it that you want us in the beef business? And really what I found out since then is it really has nothing to do with the beef business or the chicken business, and it has to do more with the land. About that time, I found a guy on YouTube named Greg Judy. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him before, but I couldn't believe it when I found him online. I thought, he's copycatting us. This guy's moving cattle every day. How does he know what we're doing here? I mean, you know, so come to find out, Greg had been moving cattle every day or every 12 hours for the last 20 years, and here I thought he was copycatting me. About that same time, we were able to acquire another herd of cattle, and we actually more than tripled the herd size on the same piece of land. We took the farm that we were feeding hay in August on, and with a small herd of around 12 to 15 cows. To that first year, we took 98 animals, and we fed hay in December for the first time. And what is the importance of moving those animals and keeping them on the move all the time? It's mimicking the way that naturally herd animals would come into a plain and level a piece of forage and not return until that ground was fully recovered. It's the reason why you hear experts say that there's 6 foot of topsoil out in the Great Plains. It's because those animals were constantly moving and there was always a living plant in the ground. I often tell people that I'm not so much in the beef business or in the chicken business, but more in the solar harvesting business. What that's doing is keeping blades of grass out there harvesting solar energy. It's keeping the ground covered for less evaporation, cooler soil temperatures, and mainly, you know, harvesting that solar energy. Most of us learn about this in 3rd grade. It's called photosynthesis. Okay? Turning sunlight into liquid carbon and feeding our soil. And on our farm, we turn sunlight into grass-fed beef. Well, when I started to become a farmer, I couldn't believe the amount of people around me that somehow became farmers all of a sudden. Everybody wanted to tell me what I was doing wrong. You got cattle, you have to have a barn. Where's your barns at? You have to put cattle in a barn. If you're going to raise cattle, you have to have a barn. Folks, cattle don't belong in a barn. If you or I lived in an area this big all the time and just relieved ourselves all the time, do you think we would be healthy? Do you think we'd be happy? I know that the pharmaceutical companies would be happy because we would all be giving each other shots to keep each other from getting sick. I had a guy that had been raising cattle longer than I've been alive telling me that you just can't feed it. You can't feed a cow grass only. There's a picture of our old herd bull, Pete, 100% grass-fed animal. I would say he's doing pretty well on just grass, wouldn't you say? Another thing I'd hear people tell me all the time is you have to fertilize your pastures. You need to get out there, you need to spray some nitrogen or do something to fertilize your pastures. And that's about the most silliest thing I've ever heard before in my life. I like to look at those people and say, did you know that the air rate above the ground is 78% nitrogen? Why are we putting nitrogen out there on your pasture? I was at church last week and a guy said, man, he goes, I think about you every time it rains. Your pastures must be just doing tremendous this year. And you're right, he's right, they are. It's been a grazer's dream this year, to be completely honest with you. But I was on my way home thinking about him saying that, and I had to ask myself, why is it everybody else's pastures it doesn't seem to make a difference? Why is it that when I drive by everybody else's pastures, this is what it looks like? You can go 5 miles from where we're standing today and you can see that at more than one producer's farm. And I drive by there and I think to myself, those pastures look naked, hungry, thirsty, and running a fever. What do I mean by running a fever? Well, have you ever walked on the beach in the summertime, it'll burn your feet, right? It's hot. At 140 degree soil temperatures, you've killed every living microbial life in your soil. Folks, we should be up at night not being able to sleep over bare soil on our farms. And who do you think attracts rain? It's a plant. Okay, the only way you can have a water cycle is with a plant. 40% of rain comes from inland plants. Evapotranspiration. I like to tell people on our operation we like to graze 365 days a year. They look at me like I'm pretty silly and say, you can't do that in Michigan. You can't do that, which I like to then say about 300 of those days I like to graze on grass if possible. Doesn't always happen that way, but that's kind of my goal. Every year when we feed hay, you can see rolling the hay out and letting the animals graze and keep them on the move even in the winter time. So we'll go into a pasture. No, we don't move them every 12 hours like we are right now. That'd be really silly to do all summer or winter long. But we'll go into an area, roll out a bale of hay here, the next day roll it out here, and work our way right across the field until we're done in that field, and then go to the next. I love buying hay from a hay producer. It's one of my favorite things to do because I can take all the nutrients that he's expedited off of his land and bring it onto mine. I want to keep all that for myself. And what little waste the animal leaves behind, which I gotta tell you, when you're rolling round bales out, it's very little, but what waste is left behind gets stampeded into the ground with the animal themselves. I hear the term a lot in the livestock business, a sacrifice lot. We got tons of rain, I've destroyed my whole farm with my sacrifice lot, and then he started asking me about my sacrifice lot, and I told him I don't know what he's talking about. This is actually a picture of one of our sacrifice lots. And this is actually going to be the field that we're going out to here today, because this is where the cattle are. But we unrolled somewhere between 45 and 50 round bales on that field last year. And it was actually more towards spring. So if anybody in the livestock business knows what spring's like, it's called mud month. And normally you tear things apart. Another thing about this picture you'll see is all those tall brown seed heads next to a lush grain grass right there. When I first started in the cattle business, everybody would tell me you got to clip your pastures. You got to keep them from going to seed. And you know, I don't really agree with clipping pastures for seed anymore. Every time I'd done it, I seemed like I didn't get any rain the next month or two and my pastures were burnt up. Now I will go out and clip pastures for weed control, and I probably will do maybe 5% or less of the farm every year just to hit a couple areas. But something interesting in this field you'll notice is we didn't quite have our paddock size down quite on the left side right there. You know, I think in farming we're so quick to want to get out our tools. Get out our tractors, get out our implements, and use those. I like to use the animal as the tool. I had a guy tell me this year, he said, you got to reseed your pastures. That's what you need to do. You need to go out there and you need to reseed your pastures. They have to be reseeded. I'd like to show them this picture right here. That's our buggy growing eyelashes out of it. What is that happening there? Well, it's seed from the field that's growing out of every nook and cranny in that buggy. So I told this guy, I said, yes, I reseeded the whole farm this year. He goes, you did? What'd you plant? I said, we let everything go to seed and we brought the animal in with 4 hooves and we stampeded it into the soil. And that's when he told me, nah, you got to have new seed, which I think is kind of silly. We direct market all of our products on our farm here. You can go to our website, you can hit the shop now button, you can go through our whole inventory, you can buy 1 pound of ground beef, you can buy 2 chicken breasts, whatever you want. I'm not going to raise a product on my farm and let somebody else tell me what they're going to pay for it. You can find anybody you want. You can market to anybody you want. With a couple seconds, they can find you with just their thumbs. And we have customers in Detroit, Whitmore Lake, Hillsdale County. They come from all over to get our stuff. I told you guys at the beginning that I was not raised as a farmer and never really thought I would be in the farming business. And to be completely honest with you, I believe that that's been my best attribute coming into this business. I've owned my own business since I was about 23 years old and have been pretty successful at it. So I'm a businessman and I look at everything I do as running a business. And I feel like from the outside looking in, so to speak, into the farming community, I feel like farming has become an input-driven business. Billions and billions of dollars are made off the backs of the farmers, and the last person to get the paycheck is the producer themselves. I don't know about you guys, but I want to sign the backs of checks and not the front. And if I would have been listening to all these people that you've heard about in me talking, telling me all the things I needed to do and all the inputs I needed, I would be barn broke, input broke, tractor broke, with a few cattle out on the property still. Because the money is in the livestock on this operation. Honestly, I credit all my success in the farming business to one thing, and that's the land. And what I like to call creation. I credit my success to creation and my relationship with the Creator. And I believe that once we can see that design, that there is a design in this, and that everything is one. Everything works together. And I believe that once we can see that as farmers, as producers, that's when we are all going to be the most successful on our farms. To talk about diversity on our farm. That's one thing that I believe is lacking in the agriculture business. And the chickens are a direct result of that diversity. These are chicken tractors. This is what we raise our chickens in. You can see them, they're out in that field right behind us right now. It's amazing you can't smell all those nasty chickens people talk about. We could go out there and eat lunch around them if you want later, because there is no smell to them really at all. But we'll have normally right around close to 500 chickens at a time out there. These are 10 by 10 pens that we built, and we move them every day. And towards the end of their life cycle, we will move them every 12 hours. And it basically forces them to get up and eat fresh forage. And I got to be honest with you guys about something. I felt a little silly becoming a chicken farmer. Kind of thought, what am I, going from something like raising, big animals like cows, and now I'm going to be a chicken farmer. I felt kind of silly, to be honest with you. But all that silliness went away the first time I tasted that product. Okay? And every single person we've sold chicken to comes back and tells us how great it is and buys more of it. So I don't feel silly at all anymore. I laugh all my way to the bank, to be completely honest with you. Another thing we find a lot of use and diversity is in our pastures. We're going to try to get as much diversity in our pastures as possible. This year we have planted some multi-species annual mixes right into our perennial pastures. Using the animal as the tool, not coming out there with chemicals and spraying off anything, but terminating the pasture as much as possible with the animal, and no-tilling in a multi-species cover crop. But I want to leave you guys with a quote here from one of the grandfathers of regenerative agriculture, Gabe Brown. And if you don't know who Gabe Brown is, I highly recommend you go and do some research on him. Gabe Brown farms in North Dakota, a little over 5,000 acres. And here's the important part, 0 commercial fertilizers, 0 herbicides, 0 pesticides, 0 tillage. And his yields are over his county average. So can you imagine the living that him and his family are making off that land without all those extra inputs? But he said, I used to wake up every morning asking myself, what can I go out and kill today? And now I wake up asking myself, what kind of life can I add to my farm today? Folks, thank you for listening to me today. If you have any questions or interested in more of our processes, we do have a YouTube channel that we post on about every week to maybe 2 videos a week. So you can check us out there. Appreciate you listening. Enjoy your morning here on Drumhiller Farms.
Pieces of your operation that you would like to do. What challenges do regulations present to you?
We are all USDA certified. All our meat is USDA certified, which means you have to go to a USDA certified processor.
So my question's on soil health as well. What have you learned, and how have you learned what you've learned about soil health in the pastures, as far as how you manage the pastures? Are you testing the soil? How are you adapting how you manage the properties based on what you've got?
To be honest with you, I probably should be a little more technical than what we are, because we're not doing a whole lot of soil testing. Jared's come out and done some soil testing, and we're going to be doing some follow-ups with those soil testing. You know, I believe to be a good farmer or a grazer, I would really consider myself more of a grazer than a farmer. It's all about observation, right? If you're not observing what you're doing, you're never learning anything. Nature is chaotic, right? It's constantly changing, and you have to adapt to that. And it's all for us about observation, really, to answer your question. We're going to go out there and see, what did the animal leave? How much do we need to give them the next day or the next 12 hours? And really, that's to me, that's the benefit of moving them every 12 hours. If you mess up, if you go out there, and honestly, I did it just about a week ago. I went out there and went, oh my gosh, I overgrazed. It's a 12-hour strip. Big deal, you know? You increase your paddock size the next 12 hours, and you just observe what they do. Now, every field's different, every season's different, every year's different. So if you're not constantly changing and adapting and observing, you know, but I probably should do a little more soil testing and stuff. But I guess, to be honest with you, I don't really see the point in it at this very juncture, really.
So you talked about adding in sort of your perennial and annual mixes together and bringing in some more biodiversity. Do you ever have any challenges with your perennial grasses, with some of them being more aggressive and kind of taking over and you know, not ending up with a good mix that you want?
Absolutely. You know, this is our first year doing it, and it was just kind of an idea that we had. It's been tough. We did some bale grazing out here. Instead of rolling the hay out in every pasture this year, we tried bale grazing and basically giving them access to so many bales and letting them graze those. In those areas that were left after the bales, we got huge growth in that annual mix. What we're going to try to do different this time, because we've had a lot of competition with the perennial mixes coming in, is plant it, let it pop back up. You know, normally 4 to 7 days your pastures are going to get a quick jolt. Go back in there and hit it again with the animal to kind of stun it again. You know, on one of my YouTube videos, I use the term terminate the pasture, and I got a lot of flack for that, and that's really not what we're trying to do. We don't want to terminate our pastures. We want to stunt them enough to let the annual mix pop up first, and then kind of follow behind. Rotation, so I'm hoping to get like 75 days. Like in the spring, when things are growing real fast, moving them real quick, trying to stay ahead of it. Second rotation's a little longer. Third rotation, you know, and fourth, you get one of the here's my neighbor Steve. He did a lot of haying off the land, you know what I mean? And a little bit of grazing, but I think it's been a big difference, don't you think?
Yeah, I was just noticing walking across this pasture that it's thickened up and it's gotten quite a bit more diversity in it than 3 years ago.
Or
was sidetracked for a second, but what's your calving and harvest season?
We calve in the spring,
Okay.
which we were a little late putting the bull in last year because we got a new bull, and we were a little late this year too. But we've got one that's going to calve probably any day.
Okay.
But typically we'd be done with calving by now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're trying to get an operation where we're harvesting every month.
Okay.
Or, you know, with the exception of a few months in the winter.
Starting as early as like how young on a calf?
Well, we started doing like 16 months. Now we're trying to take everything out a minimum of 24 months.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge difference in the marbling of the meat, the size of the animals. And a lot of that's going to be genetics, getting rid of some of these animals that aren't really made for grass as well as. But for years, the demand, we didn't really know any better, one. And then the demand was there to sell the meat. So we were just kind of doing, we're selling it, well, now we're more fine-tuning the product and the end result, which, thinking about those genetics and, there's some animals in the herd, like that black one back there, that needs a leave, And you can see she's putting everything she's got into that huge sack of milk right there. And really, the more you learn, the more you realize it's really not a good trait. If it was a dairy cow, yeah, that's a great trait. But in the beef business, it's not really a good trait to put all your energy into growing milk. You know what I mean? Like a small little sack like that right there with fine little teats is a better trait in the beef business because they're putting more energy into staying in condition and less into that milk.
So this is a Murray Gray?
Yeah, yep. Like when you look at that black cow loaded with flies, and then you look at this one right here and it's only got 20 flies on it, that's a trait. I mean, they're attracted to that animal. Look at the one back there. You know how many flies that animal's bringing to the herd?
Bless you.
So, guys, well, the field day is a wrap. We got tore down, the sun came out and it got hot. The whole time the field day was going on, it was just a beautiful, cool breeze going, man. We had so much favor today. It was just wonderful. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'm gonna go in and relax for a few, just before I gotta go out and do chores. But again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. God bless.